Be part of unearthing Africa's gold. Be part of the Joburg Film Festival.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Sipho Ngwenya, and welcome to the Joburg Film Festival and GQ Content Series Talks. As you guys know, these talks are centered around conversations with some of the greatest South African actors, actresses, film producers, directors, all in support of the Joburg Film Festival, brought to you by a multi-choice group. With me today, I have the honor of chatting to Shamilla Miller.
Yes.
Shamilla, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
Phenomenal. How are you?
Very, very good. We were just having a casual chat, and you know, I've just discovered so much about Shamilla in the last 2 minutes, and we'll get into a bit of that. But no, not now. I think the first thing to get into, our talk today is centered around, making it globally. As someone who's lived overseas, also I know for only a short stint, but what is it like for you to have lived that experience, and how have you brought that into your craft as an actor?
As an actor, just living abroad, you mean? Well, when I was living abroad, I was working in a hospitality job. I was working on the yachts, I was working in France. And so being able to observe people in different scenarios and situations, I think, and knowing how to handle people in different situations. I think that's taught me a lot about people, and also portraying people, different lifestyles, different moods, different anxieties. Living abroad and again working in hospitality, being able to observe people constantly and kind of note things has really come a long way and taught me some fundamentals of life.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Now let's take it back a bit, right? So you started off as an actor on stage, right? And then you made a transition onto the big screen. What was that journey like for you, and what are some of those challenges that you faced as a stage actor, having to come now into on screen?
So mine is a different story, because yes, I did start on stage, but I went to film school before that. And at film school, there are two different courses. You study acting for stage and acting for film. So I did have that as a basis, and that training as a basis. What I will say about any transition between the two is that it's mostly technical. So, you're not going to do the same performance that you would on stage that you will on film. On stage, you want to be as expressive as you can be, big, loud, especially if you're not mic'd, for example. And then when it comes to film, the techniques are different, because there's this thing that someone once told me, that the camera can see your thoughts, can read your thoughts. And so you really don't have to do much. You just have to be and think to be believable. And so that technique, when it comes to film, is just very different to what you would do on stage, because the audience can't see your thoughts on a stage, right? So I think it's all technical. And I think that my transition was fairly smooth because I had that training.
So were you never told on your first television gig not to scream or shout?
Oh no, I get told all the time, bring it down, Shamilla, bring it down, all the time. So I think as actors we play, especially with film, you play with different volumes and you play with different movements, and that's the director's job to go, okay, I'm glad you got that out of your system. That didn't work. Let's bring it down, or let's take it up, or let's try something different.
One more technical question, and also not being too technical about it. Actors speak about characterization, right? And some would do the whole method acting thing. What is your process, having to have played so many different roles?
Right.
How do you draw inspiration for your next role?
So there's two different questions, so I'm going to answer them separately. So how do I prepare for each role? And actors all have different processes and how they get there. But I start with a script, I start with a story. You're reading it through a bunch of times, and then I literally take pen to paper and I start writing from, I'll write a diary for my character, or I'll write her entire backstory. Where did she grow up? What did her parents do? What was her social situation? What schools did she go to? So all of those things I write in this very elaborate backstory. And then I also will work through a script and break each scene down, like physically by hand, like where they're coming from, what's the mood, what's the objective in the scene or the obstacle in the scene, etc. So I break down each scene as well, which is super tedious. It takes a long time, but it then just helps me on set to, you're shooting out to continuity. So it just gets me into the moment and be like, oh yes, this is where we are. So that kind of helps me. So that's my process. Also, when you're on set, you're with other actors, you're with the director, and so you're constantly molding your performance. But the base, that is my base process. And then inspiration comes from everywhere, inspiration comes from, again, people that I've observed or friends that I have or, parents or just people that I've observed in life. For example, like I've recently played a mother, and I'm not a mother myself.
Yeah.
And so what I did is, you do research, you're asking your friends about certain things of what motherhood, early motherhood is like. And then you take that and you go, okay, well, there's a different type of exhaustion. I've never felt that, but I've been exhausted in my life before. I've been stretched thin in my life before. And what was I feeling at that time? And can I bring those emotions in to then support this character? So that's kind of how I draw things.
And have you ever played two characters at the same time?
Yes.
And how was that like for you?
Yeah, it's tough. I recently did it for the first time ever. And it's so funny because my agents were like, it's not really something that you want to do. It's going to be tough. And I was like, no, I can do it. I just give me all the work. You're like hungry and thirsty for work. I just want to be kept busy. And these two jobs, one was a series and one was a film. And the shooting period was literally on top of each other. So I was flying in and out in different cities. One was in Cape Town, one was in Durban. And then hopping out of these different mindsets, different sets, different directors, all of it. It was not only, it was exhausting, yeah.
Well, listen,
it was crazy.
I've spoken to a few actors and I must say that you're very brave because not many people like doing that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a good lesson because it was the first time and I think it was very arrogant, like, I can do it, but I wouldn't suggest it. It's tough.
Cool, so now let's go to another field and without being too political, right? So there's this saying that goes, representation matters, right? And if we look at it from a context of the South African film industry and television industry, there's been a huge struggle for, people of color having their stories being told in the languages that they speak in and written by people who understand their culture, right? And I think actually this has been a struggle globally, even in America, right? Yeah. What would you say about that in terms of African colored people in South Africa? Do you think that there are enough stories for colored people that are being told on our mainstream platforms?
This is not a difficult, this is an interesting question because it's been coming up so often over the last few years. As we all know, the representation matters scenario, we all know that conversation, but when it comes to colored content in South Africa specifically, it is getting better. I think people are writing more stories and it's fleshing out and it's more colorful. But often you'll find colored representation in stories that are, it's a colored story. We were doing The Umbrella Men and that's John Barker wrote this story about, the Cape minstrels and this Cape colored culture, but that was a Cape colored culture. There are different shows on TV that have a full colored cast, but it's very, we're telling this story. When it comes to more mainstream stories, that's where I think we need to focus more on representation because you'll often find there's going to be one colored person and it's either male or female. We don't have a diverse group of coloreds on one production in a mainstream production or movie or series or whatever. So I think we do need to just open up a little bit in that sense and also not make that one character a stereotype.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
Yeah, because that's what you find, especially in the more popular, pop series or movies, is that you go, okay, we've got this one character, he or she's a colored, and then they make it a stereotypical, over the top flamboyant character, and I'm like, it's not always the truth. So that definitely needs to get better, in my opinion.
And now, when it comes to talent, what's your take on nature versus nurture, right? So, I mean, some people believe that, they've got a God-given talent and that's what they run with, right? And maybe it does sustain them, right? And then you have people who really believe that talent has to be nurtured, right? So they really go out and go to film school, or they get some kind of grounding for their talent. What's your take on?
My take is the latter, what you said, is that, having talent is key, obviously. But nurturing that talent is even more important, because you can be as talented as you are in anything, but you need to also learn the technical things about your craft. You need to hone into your craft and understand the world of it. So as an actor, I mean, I'm not saying go out there and get a degree or, go to university or college or whatever, but, do a course. Do a workshop, have an acting coach. If you look at people in the world, Beyonce's got a vocal coach, Serena Williams, Sia Kolosi, they've all got coaches. Many actors have acting coaches. So I don't mean like go out and get your film degree, but I definitely think along the way, having a coach, doing workshops, doing an improv class when you're not working on audition scenes, getting together as a group of friends and read a screenplay, find different nuances and different things that come out. I think honing in on your talent in that way, I think is important to keep yourself sharp, and also to have other people not influence you, but have kind of like show you a different thing. An acting coach, you can do a scene together, right? And you go, this is how I'm gonna play the scene. And then another set of eyes can say, maybe it's interesting if you, say the dialogue like this, or maybe this is your intention instead of this. You're going with hurt instead of anger. And it changes the tone of the scene, and you go, I never saw it that way. And then you find an interesting way to bring it to life. And I think that's important with coaching or with workshops.
Interesting. So now, trying to bring back the conversation to, making it globally, right? So now we've seen a lot of, South African exports, to the global stage. Ranging from your Tusombedus to your Atando Kanis, etc., right? And they've done it so well. What would you then say is the lesson that all of us can learn from in terms of trying to sustain yourself on the global stage?
Right. Oh, the lessons. I don't know. I'm still learning the lessons out here. It's a difficult question because I think it's a different thing for different actors. So in my experience and things that I've observed with my peers is that, straight out of film school, a lot of my peers have gone straight to the States, try and make it in Hollywood. And I feel like that was such a difficult platform to start off from. Whereas there have been other people like Tuso, who have built a platform here in South Africa, gone over with a resume and go, this is what I can do, look what I found a management team and go, this is my team, this is what I can show you, this is my proof of work. And I just think it's a much better platform to start off of than rather go in overseas and kind of start from scratch and you're just a very small fish in a very, very large pond. That being said, I'm not saying that it's impossible.
Of course, yeah.
But I do just think, having some kind of a platform, being like, look, this is my credits, this is what I can do to hit that global stage. Also, with having Netflix and Amazon and Disney here at the moment, the global stage has come to us as well.
Of course. And look, and I think just from a competition point of view on the landscape, right, in Africa, I think it's great that we do have that, right, for both actors and other, producers and directors, etc. With that said, I now want to know what's next for you. What can we look forward to?
Right. I've got a lot of balls in the air at the moment. I actually also, I just completed an LA trip where I went over to kind of just like dip my toe in, see if I could find representation, see if there's any kind of interest. And that's what I did. I found representation. It's very new, and we're kind of starting the process now, because it was like a month ago. Starting the process of like going through meetings, seeing see if there are any bites over there. So that's, you know, working in the background. Other than that, I'm forging on forward in South Africa in this industry. I'm, you know, shooting films. Hopefully there's a series that's in development that is a very cool African story. I can't talk about it obviously, but it's a very cool African story that we'll hopefully get to in 2023. And these are all for global stages because they're on international platforms. So yeah.
No.
Watch the space.
Wishing you all the best. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
And then one final one, right? So the Johannesburg Film Festival this year, the theme is Our Stories, you know, Our Gold. And the film festival is really trying to unearth a lot of talent. And for those actors and actresses who are watching this right now, I'd like to, you know, have a few words from your side just to kind of like try and inspire them, you know,
Right.
to, because hopefully they want to be sitting on the chair that you're sitting on today.
Yes, of course. My first thing that I would say is that, like, if you're in this and you're passionate about it, perseverance is like the biggest thing. I think in front of the camera, behind the camera, all of it, it's a difficult industry. And so like having the bones to do it, you have to just persevere and like get through the teething phases. And then also to remember that as Africa, we're young storytellers. And that being said, I mean, like, for the first time, our stories are being sold internationally to the world. And you must remember that everyone globally want to hear our stories because it's new and it's fresh, and there's hurt and there's humor and there's romance, and there's so many different ways to tell a story, an African story, and people are hungry for it. So keep writing, keep producing, keep developing, because we've got the platforms now to show everyone in the world.
Well, Shamilla, thank you very much for your time. That was a great chat. Really enjoyed it. And wishing you all the best with all your ventures overseas, and hope that pulls through for you.
We'll see. And it's not like South Africa is perfect.
No, of course.
There's no complaints.
No, we've got you, don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this chat of the Johannesburg Film Festival and GQ content series. My name is Sipho Ngwenya. Check you next time.